Hey guys, here I am delivering the promised video on the heuristics or methodology of AI slash machine learning research. It all started with a comment under this videos from Jeffrey in which he discussed his learning experience on the topic of AI or machine learning, and like judging by his wording and feeling about it, he's not that much satisfied with what he's got from this 1 year of learning, and that also applies to his learning in the machine learning and AI field. And here in this video, we're gonna somehow find a little bit of a reason behind it, but more important is how to do it in a better way, in a way that will give you more out, give you more outcome, give you more product to show for it. And here we go. And this is the talking points. So the general idea behind this learning of a particular topic, in this case is AI machine learning, is how you should use those external resources. In Jeffrey's case, he definitely crunched a lot of external resources throughout a year. I don't know him for personally or in any detail, but if he's also working full time, this is quite astonishing, to be honest. I can't do so much reading or learning in 1 year. So to give Jeffrey the credit, but this is definitely probably not the right way to do it. The reason for that is you are searching too much into those external resources. The proposal I'm going to give in this video is that you should not be using those external resources as a source of ground truth which you need to encode into your head, but rather as a giant toolbox that gives you only an overview when you have a question that you do not even know what kind of sub question to ask. So how do we take that perspective into like a real world, real life example? Let's take the book that Jeffrey mentioned, and a lot of people give a huge amount of credit to, and also great book. There's, I'm not definitely not discrediting this book, but we're going to demonstrate how the content in this book might be dependent on some assumptions um, that wasn't shown directly or wasn't even there at the time the book was written. So here we are. Let's take the example of the chapter on regularization and the section of early stopping. This is a very commonly adopted technique. From the experience, from my personal experience, it is in fact implemented in almost every training paradigm. But the reason behind this implementation, like this universal implementation over multiple projects and like all over the places, is probably not exactly what they say here. And there's a reason behind it. Let's get through what the article, what the book says first. When training large models with sufficient representational capacity to overfit the task, we often observe the training error decrease steadily over time, but the validation set error begins to rise again. See figure for the example. The kind of phenomenon, I'm probably a lot of people know this, is that it is talking about overfitting. The fact that the model gets repetitively trained on a small set of training data, and it just get too fine-tuned into this set of data that it loses any kind of real-world practical application in general sense. So that sounds like a really valid explanation. And how is that going to prove our point? The fact that, given my personal experience of why this thing is implemented almost everywhere, is probably not for this reason, exactly for this reason. I'm not going to completely debunk this statement, but it doesn't play like what is the kind of importance the book is emphasizing right here. The first part is, even though the book is talking about training large models, it wasn't talking about training models as large as what we have today. The book wasn't expecting you're going to be training models of tens of billions of parameters. At the day, but back in the day when this was written, large models probably meant a couple hundred megs, some hundred of millions of parameters. That would be really large, actually. And also, it doesn't really expect that there would be so much viable training data. The reason for that is the kind of unsupervised or semi-supervised training paradigm was not the shape it is today at the time the book was written. So given all of that, what actually makes early stopping kind of universal today is you got to stop the learning rate dropping from to a point that almost all the training data stops doing anything. It is quite common in today's large language models, especially large language models training, that the learning rate will be dropping since the training stage lasts for so long, and the learning rate will be dropping constantly in the process. It will decrease to a point that the data pumping in doesn't really make any change, any significant change to the like improving loss of the model itself. So that is like we can see a divergent in an explanation of why we should implement a particular paradigm or technique inside the training process. But which side is right? Then it comes to the problem. After giving our example, here comes the problem. Which side is correct? Is it because of the fact that models tend to overfit, so we should terminate them early on? Or is it because of the fact that learning rate will be dropping to a point that is so low that we should terminate the training process instead? The real answer is neither. And that is why I said in the beginning of this example that it's not that one side is right, the other side is wrong. It's because there are a lot of assumptions you haven't taken into consideration. But then comes to the question, for someone who has just started in this field, or someone like a newbie in this whole machine learning stuff, how can you question? How can you not have like the bunch of information I just given to you, and like there will be probably won't be a lot of people showing you the actual assumptions that is happening under the hood. They will be just feeding you those conclusive statements, things like you should using early stop because of to prevent overfitting, or they would just tell you like you should be using early stop because the learning rate parameter is just dropping into like below the paramount amount. They would probably not show you what's actually the assumption behind those conclusions. But as a newbie, like you cannot really take on those conclusions as it is. So what I'm arguing here is, when you are new to the field and you actually do get a lot of conclusive statements from external sources, is not which side that is right or wrong. Neither side is right or wrong. You haven't seen the full picture. There is not enough factual knowledge that can help you to judge which side is wrong, because there isn't enough debunk on their assumptions. So, given all of that, what would be actually a useful kind of approach, or the topic of this video, the heuristics, the methodology behind this AI research? What I believe to be a good approach. And this is the heuristics I'm applying, and I want people who are getting into this field to also apply, is to be more questioning and be more hesitant when you are presented with a conclusive statement, because this approach, this heuristics, will propel you to more action. And let's just be honest, more action doesn't really mean that you need to read more books or you need to get more valid sources to get a cross reference of say probably 10 people say that you should be conducting early stop to prevent overfitting. 5 people say that, oh no, it's just because the model, the learning rate parameter will be dropping into too low. No, we do not count numbers. We do not count people's arguments like that. What actually is action is you should conduct experiments. You should go into specifics, go into the kind of task. What exactly is the task? What exactly is the model? And draw your own conclusion. And this is the only factual base you will be able to obtain and you will be able to trust 100%. You shouldn't be trusting facts, conclusive statements from others, but only the facts that you have collected from your own experiments. And that is why I believe that any kind of attitude or any approach, any heuristics that will propel you to more action, which means more coding, more experiments, is eventually going to benefit you. In the beginning, it might be some kind of wasting time because, to be honest, it's just in the case of early stopping, since it's almost applied everywhere and both of the sides, or maybe there is this third argument, maybe there's a fourth argument, maybe just all of the arguments, you can disregard them because in practice, it is almost everywhere. You can take it as it is, because like probably wasting time on such a trivial mechanic doesn't really benefit you in the short-term research goal you want to achieve. But even if you want to challenge this trivial mechanic, is not exactly so much of a wasted time, because even for something that is like universally widely accepted, like early stopping paradigm, the ability you gain to use code/actions to draw your own conclusion is much more useful than the ability to acquire information in the field of machine learning. What I mean by this is, as you take on actions to do experiments, at the beginning you might be slow, you might be facing a lot of bugs, you might need a lot of assistance from GPT, from Google, from your friend, but over time this process will speed up, and with today's technology it will speed up at the pace you probably wouldn't imagine. And in the end you find that is all you need. The ability to act upon a question quick enough is the key to doing independent research. And just at this point, I just wanted to propose to you a practical example of what kind of question you should be asking yourself in the process of, say, reading a research paper or reading somebody's post on a certain thing. The kind of question that really gets you into a tutorial loop, or people might refer to it as a tutorial hell, is you might be asking yourself, why does this concept work on this task and this model? And it's not to say that this is a bad question, but the why question is already making the assumption that what people is claiming is factually, that doesn't need to be challenged factually, which kind of you move forward in the chain of logic. If you guys follow up in the chain of logic, like you move one step further in the pursuit of your research target, but you actually take on more assumptions, and if without verification you might not know if this assumption is the key or not to your problem. However, the kind of question that will drive you to action, to code, to experiment, which is the key, which is the heuristics of this talk, of this video, is this kind, the why not question. So you might be asking yourself, why does not the other concept or the other mechanic, the other technique work on this model? This propel you to comparison. This already gives you a pair of comparison that you might be able to implement to do an experiment, because you already have a pair of the comparative variable that you can conduct experiment on and isolate them and get an understanding of how it performed. After all of that, what I want to say is that someone who probably doesn't have enough knowledge to give yourself enough like kind of argumentative power, the argumentative information, you should be trusting your intuition. You shouldn't be taking on too many assumptions, and by implementing bold questions into experiments, which is more coding, more action, the test of your idea with experiments will get faster and faster. And in the end, after all of it, the process, the ability to test the idea, the ability to do quick testing, quick feedback, will give you more factual knowledge, a more solid base of information than others. So the conclusion is to test your idea with experiments instead of theory proofs from those external resources. But after all those things, what I want to say is I'm not here to discredit any of those external resources. You need to use them in a way that it gets you an overview instead of a set of factual statements that you find it to be a hurdle that you cannot overcome. Yeah, and in this pile of resources, I particularly recommend any videos from Andre Karpathy. He does things really hands-on, and to be honest, if you follow his tutorials, you will get a pretty much very clear idea on the most popular model architecture, which is the transformer behind large language model. And yeah, the book is pretty fine. The book touched on a lot of topics and aspects of machine learning and AI today. But take it in moderate amount. And after all, coding, write the code, search for how you can implement the research question in your head, how you can implement that in code, run the code, debug the code, search for the way to debug. ChatGPT is your friend. It does really good debugging. Modify the code, and if it runs through and the experiment is complete and you are able to draw some conclusion, then you can think about what to do next. Then it's the time for you to read more papers, read more books, but also remember that those external resources are not source of ground truth. Read it as an overview when you probably know nothing about a certain concept or a certain technique. And whenever you find things to be a little bit sussy, a little bit, you can question them. Ask yourself, maybe in a comparative way, why not the other way? Why not the other way? This inherently gives you a comparative experiment, and write more code. And this is all I want to say for this video. Thank for everyone who's watching to the end of it. I know I kind of yap a lot, and thanks for all the people who are interested in this field. And to be honest, making a video is definitely more time consuming and energy consuming than I originally thought about. So just if there is any other topic you guys wanted to hear more about, or even some practical examples, some kind of a walkthrough thing, let me know. And aside from technology, I also do some music. It's all in my channel. Feel free to check them out. All right. See you guys next time. Peace.